After discovering precisely what shocking occurrences these actors genuinely experienced in the forging of the following small screen sequences, you may just come to appreciate said TV scenes that little bit more. Or at the very least, you'll have some trivia to throw into the mix at the pub. Gareth here from WhatCulture.com, and here are 10 TV moments more terrifying when you know the truth. Number 10, that jump scare caught the actors by surprise too, The Haunting of Hill House. The visual of Victoria Pedretti's ghostly Nell suddenly firing up between Theo and Shirley mid-drive was the stuff of TV nightmares, wasn't it? In truth though, it wasn't just fans taking in the Netflix slice of horror that were deeply disturbed by the shocking arrival. The actors on set and the folks behind the monitor all crapped their pants too. That's because, according to showrunner Mike Flanagan, Victoria was under strict orders to pop up much earlier in the scene than castmates Kate Siegel and Elizabeth Reeser thought she would. In fact, those two assumed they had another half a page of lines to go before Victoria would break up the conversation. That is one way of putting it. However, during the first take of the sequence, Pedretti very much caught the two by surprise, and the resulting reactions, as Flanagan put it, were genuine. Hell, Flanagan would even confess that the folks behind the monitor were all aware it was coming, but still couldn't stop themselves from jumping in their seats at the horrifying early interruption. You know you've done something right if a scare you're fully expecting still catches you completely off guard, eh? Number 9, Madeline Patch had a panic attack before her boat scene. Riverdale. It's not uncommon for an actor to have to face some of their deepest fears when stepping on set to film a sequence for a popular TV offering. And in the case of Madeline Patch, whilst working on the CW's Riverdale, said traumatic experience involved the Cheryl Blossom actor having to overcome a particularly daunting obstacle for her: splashing around in a body of water. While the idea of a scene that required the actor to step onto a boat and go for a paddle with their on-screen brother may not have seemed that terrifying to the average person, for Patch it quickly resulted in a panic attack that no one else was privy to. That's because back when the actor was a kid growing up in South Africa, she found herself being taken under by a huge tide during a dip in the sea. That fear of thinking she was going to die at the age of 8 years old, along with another unfortunate glass-bottom boat ride many moons ago, stuck with Patch right up to the point of shooting the aforementioned opening scene of Riverdale. Patch actually went as far as to class the moment as therapy for her, though she quickly added that she was still very much terrified during the boat ride. And you can hardly blame her, can you? Number 8, Ellen Pompeo wasn't too happy about doing one particularly dangerous stunt, Grey's Anatomy. The last thing a performer would likely want to deal with on the back of a seemingly never-ending shift on set is the idea of offering their body up for a piece of action that has just left a stunt person needing to go through concussion protocol. But that's precisely the unenviable situation Ellen Pompeo found herself in when shooting Grey's Anatomy's jaw-dropping bomb explosion scene during Season 2's As We Know It episode. After already working for something like 17 hours and confessing to being exhausted, the reality of a young stuntwoman slamming her head down hard during the first attempt at yanking Meredith Grey away from the stunt explosion left episode director Peter Horton with no choice but to use Ellen instead. One inevitable screaming match later, a blast-off Pompeo took part in said dangerous stunt, only for Horton to still use the majority of the take that saw the young stuntwoman's head legit bounce off the floor. And with all that in mind, you'll likely never look at this explosive moment the same way ever again. Number 7, the overwhelming reality behind one of Walter White's darkest hours, Breaking Bad. Few would argue against the moment Walter White opts to leave Jesse Pinkman's girlfriend Jane Margolis to die as the most horrifying Breaking Bad sequence of the lot, and that horror extended onto the set itself when it came time to shoot the horrific visual of Jane choking on her own vomit in her sleep, with Kristen Ritter noting how the experience of acting during the entire death sequence was overwhelming. Ritter wasn't the only one who found the hugely dark moment somewhat difficult to execute. Bryan Cranston would later confess to ultimately seeing his own daughter's face in the thick of Ritter's convincing performance too, something that sits as a parent's worst fear come to life. Aaron Paul would also admit that the subsequent moment that saw Jesse realise his girlfriend was dead had an emotional toll on him, before adding, "I was so devastated that I just couldn't come back from it." In isolation, the hard-to-watch scenes are up there with some of the most startling and heartbreaking moments ever to be unleashed on television, and the additional knowledge of the actors themselves going through hell in the making of them only adds to the distressing ordeal. Number 6, a fiery moment nearly got out of hand. What We Do in the Shadows. The vampires found occupying the TV corner of the mockumentary world of What We Do in the Shadows aren't what you'd class as the sort capable of keeping you awake at night. That's not to say that the process of bringing one of these hilarious undead entities to the small screen is completely devoid of legit terror though. In fact, in the case of Naja actor Nastasia Dimitriou, one particular scene involving her 500-year-old Greek Romani vampire feeling the heat brought with it some very real on-set dread. According to the actor herself, the finale of season 1 sequence that involved Nadia's hands suddenly combusting in the middle of a funeral genuinely left Dimitriou thinking she may lose her mitts. That's because the person in charge of special effects had put a little too much paste on her hands. And sure enough, things got a little bit out of control quite quickly. Unfortunately for Nastasia, everyone present just thought her cries of help help were in character. So for about 5 seconds there, she honestly thought one of her hands was done for. Thankfully, the fire was put out before her dress and the remainder of her body went up in flames. Damn that fire paste. Number 5, Matthew Fox was stabbed by an anything but fake knife. Lost. Jumping back to the lost moment that saw Matthew Fox's Jack Shephard battle it out with Terry O'Quinn's on-screen character, during the show's finale, the pair's throwdown eventually led to the former being stabbed by the latter. The plan was to swap in a fake knife just before the all-important shot of Fox being shivved by the John Locke actor. Only instead of reaching for the fake blade just before the moment he would plunge the dagger into Jack's side, O'Quinn made one hell of a blunder mid-wrestling match. Forgetting to hold his hand out for the exchanging of the blades in the heat of the moment, O'Quinn legit drove the real knife into a thankfully padded up Fox. Adding that little more drama to an already intense moment of action, it soon dawned on O'Quinn what had happened upon witnessing Fox roll off of him, and the rest of the crew bizarrely laughing at his screw-up. Fox may have escaped a legit stab wound thanks to his protective vest, but had the original call for the actor to drop the vest due to it looking too fake been stuck to, things could have got a little too real for all involved. Number 4, the Battle of the Bastards forced Kit Harington to face his fears. Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones' gritty, dirty, and highly emotional Battle of the Bastards didn't exactly look like a breeze to capture on camera. And in the case of one of the titular bastards himself, it was a sequence that also involved him being thrown into the most terrifying scenario imaginable. As Kit Harington would later recall, the Jon Snow actor carries a few fears, spiders included, but his biggest is unquestionably claustrophobia. So the concept of being crammed into the middle of 15 or so bearded Irishmen wasn't one that he was welcoming by any means. And Harrington would even go as far as to class the moment Snow is being squeezed and crushed by the soldiers around him as one of the most terrifying things and most uncomfortable. This genuine fear of confined spaces and large groups unquestionably helped add a legitimate layer of dread to the already relentlessly intense war zone. And with this knowledge of Kit's very real fears being faced on the day, it's pretty hard to unsee the flickers of true anxiety present in his eyes throughout this particular battle. Number 3, certain scenes were shot by a haunted old mental hospital, Euphoria. HBO's Euphoria has routinely brought with it some of the most haunting visuals and TV storylines of recent times. But away from the hard-hitting tales being told in front of the camera, the actors on set actually had to confront some particularly spooky horrors for real upon being informed precisely where they were shooting towards the end of the show's first season. With actors Algie Smith and Sydney Sweeney being tasked with filming on some weird grounds all night, the pair were ultimately pretty shocked to discover that this locale was said to be very much haunted. And just to dial up the terror, it turns out that the old mental facility they were performing at was actually shut down in the wake of the patients escaping and murdering 40 of the groundskeepers. That being said, despite calling it one of the creepiest places she'd ever been to, that still couldn't stop Sweeney from going for a cheeky explore of the haunted grounds, taking in everything from the morgue to the basement during her days on set. So the next time you take in these Chris and Cassie moments together, keep your eyes peeled for any ghostly cameos too. Number 2, bodies of water with a black bottom cause some legit concerns. Stranger Things. Returning to literal troubling waters now, and to the shot of Stranger Things lifeguard Heather suddenly bursting out of an ice bath in season 3 before being dragged into the abyss. Again, confessing to not being a person who gets their kicks out of large bodies of water, particularly ones that possess a dark black bottom, the idea of being dragged down into this liquid over and over again was terrifying for actor Francesca Reel. And if that wasn't enough, Reel also had a mechanism locked onto her foot for said yanking. But this wasn't simply a case of being swiftly pulled and flailing around as one likely would do in real life. The actor was under specific orders to hold her arms up above her head and not move them, scream without creating bubbles, and keep her eyes wide open, all while having to overcome a fear of ominous bodies of water. Charming. All that being said, though it was unquestionably incredibly hard, Rhea would admit to it being one of the most fun stunt-esque sequences she's had the opportunity to do, and hopes to do more going forward. Rather her than me. Number 1, a sprinting scene very nearly ended Henry Cavill's action career, The Witcher. The fact Henry Cavill almost ended his action career in the thick of filming his second outing as Geralt of Rivia for Netflix's The Witcher series may actually have played into his decision to quit while he's ahead. Jumping back to December 2020, the leading man was reportedly injured in the middle of shooting a sequence involving an assault course, with it being said that the star was clearly in a lot of pain. Later down the road though, it was reported that Cavill actually tore his hamstring while sprinting around in the woods, with Princess Cirilla of Sintra actor Freya Allen being present at the moment of her co-star's sudden pulling up, and herself performing a similar sequence to Cavill in the time leading up to his hamstring injury. Despite being able to push through the pain and complete the second season, however, the British sensation would eventually confess that he was constantly battling with trying to fight through the injury and not going too far to the point where he tore the hamstring even more and potentially ended his action career altogether. Classing it as his worst moment of the past year professionally back in 2021, it was probably a wise call to leave the witching to Liam Hemsworth going forward after all. And that's our list of any other TV moments more terrifying when you know the truth. Let us know all about them in the comment section right down below, and do not forget to like, share and click on that subscribe button while you're at it. Also, if you like this kind of thing, then head on over to whatculture.com and find some more fantastic articles just like the one this video you're watching right this second is based on. I've been Gareth from whatculture.com. Thank you as always for watching this lovely video today. Hopefully I'll see your faces very soon, but in the meantime, just be good to yourself. Bye bye.